Arizona. The landmarks, the legends, the legacy. Channel 8's Arizona collection features programs about our people, our land, our history. The Arizona collection is supported by the additional gifts of a growing number of friends of Channel 8. We call them our program partners, and together we're writing the history of Arizona on television. To find out how you can order programs from KAET's 40th Anniversary Arizona Collection release, please visit our website at kaet.asu.edu or call 480-965-2308. From Channel 8's Arizona Collection. Wild Arizona is made possible by the KAET program partners, friends of Channel 8 who provide additional gifts for programs about the Arizona experience. Look for Wild Arizona's web markers, which lead you to more information at our website. Underground treasures, mountain getaways, and wolves that run free in wild Arizona.
The slanted stone mountains and rolling green ranchland of southeastern Arizona give no clue of what lies just beneath the surface. But the Whetstone Mountains are riddled with limestone sinkholes. And in 1974, two Tucson college students came here looking for adventure. Their hobby was exploring caves. Randy Tufts was returning to a small sinkhole he had found years earlier.
This time there was a breeze coming out of the crevice that hadn't been there in 1967. It was a different weather condition. It was an overcast day, so it was breathing. And Gary crawled through that crevice the first time.
The rubble, the giant, the large boulders sort of moving. You probably felt like a pretzel being formed. You know, trying to maneuver through the initial
When we got through, you were very eloquent. You said, well, it's got stalactites and stalagmites.
Randy and his friend Gary Tenen continued squeezing through narrow passages, seeking the source of the cool breeze. Finally, after hours of tense work in very close quarters, they found more than they could have imagined.
There, and we came to this area, it looked like complete blackness. We shined our lamps, and you couldn't see the far wall, which was clearly a sign that that it's a big room that we were in. We couldn't see it all. We got very giggly at that point. It was quite exciting.
We kept imagining it would stop.
It must stop.
You turn the next corner, it's got to stop, right? But it never did. It just kept going. And, we'd look at everything as though it was a dream and we were going to wake up. Nobody had been there. There were no footprints, no breakage. We were the first ones.
And I think by the time we finished that trip, we had realized that we had found something that was well beyond our expectations, and probably and that with that came some responsibility, some obligation to take care of it.
As cavers, Randy and Gary had seen vandalism in caves in remote areas, and this cave was within view of a highway. Their wonder and exhilaration at their remarkable discovery was quickly joined by fear.
And we have seen so much destruction in other caves, spray painting and people mining formations and breaking formations just apparently for the fun of it, that we realized that we needed to take an approach that was different to protect this cave. That with the discovery came the responsibility of stewardship. And the first approach we took was, this has got to be a secret.
Over the next few years, they continued to explore and map the cave, being careful to always use the same trails and disturb as little as possible. They also identified the owners of the land. The Kartchner family had ranched here since 1942. To protect the cave, the discoverers formed an alliance with this family of ranchers, educators, and doctors. And for 14 years, the secret of Kartchner Caverns was closely guarded. Finally, in 1988, with help from the Nature Conservancy and Governor Bruce Babbitt, it was arranged for Arizona State Parks to purchase the land from the Kartchner family for $1.5 million, and for this priceless underground wonder to become Kartchner Caverns State Park. The subterranean fantasy land was no longer a secret. After millions of years of slow, dark, quiet, forming, growing, and changing, unseen by human eyes, the cave formations were about to be transformed into a public exhibit. How to do that while preserving and protecting the geology became the next challenge. One of the most unique things about this labyrinth of caverns beneath the desert is the fact that it is a living cave. The temperature is a steady 68 degrees year-round, and the humidity is 98%. Created by water seeping through limestone, the wide variety of cave forms are nearly all calcite.
What is especially beautiful about Kartchner is that the cave is still wet. The formations are still growing. They have drops of water on them. In many cases, you can look at the tips of formations and see the crystal growth right on the end. It is still an active, beautiful cave.
Snails. That's the first time.
As plans were made to open the cave, equipment was set up to monitor temperature and humidity. Scientists collected samples and studied the history of the cave.
The important thing is we have a record of time and past climates in this cave. It's telling us, because it is so flat, that we've had continual flushes of dirt. Maybe these are storm events. Maybe they're periodic. Maybe they're every decade that we get an El Nino event that is just so much that it will flood in here. What we have here are bits of charcoal that are very important. This same unit, we have bone in here that of a little bunny rabbit that dates to about 40,000 years based on protein analysis.
They also found the bones of a ground sloth that lived here about 80,000 years ago.
We don't know if the sloth was hibernating or if it went in there. Maybe it was a slothing cave. Maybe this is an area that mom sloth produces little slothettes.
Bats continue to live in the cave today. A colony returns every summer from Mexico to use the cave as a nursery. Developing the cave for visitors presented new dilemmas. 2.5 miles of tunnels and chambers had been explored and mapped. It was decided only a portion of the cave could be safely opened. To do that, a new entrance tunnel had to be created.
Developing a cave, there's no blueprints that you follow.
Throughout the construction process, protection of the cave had high priority. Workers came in through several sets of airlock doors to keep the dry desert air out of the cave. Nearly all the construction on the trails had to be done by hand. Concrete was carried by buckets. Safe trails were built up and covered meticulously with stones recycled from the cave construction in other areas. Construction crews worked double shifts in dark, cramped places, and they developed a respect and love for the cave. The discoverers hope visitors will have that same experience.
Not only is it a living cave, but it's still a wild cave. And the visitor is going to have that rare opportunity to walk through it, to walk through a wild environment.
The first part of the cave visitors see is the rotunda room, a chamber nearly as large as a football field.
And they'll look out and they'll see a mud-covered floor. And it's beautiful, glistening, brown, cracked mud, still wet. And across one side is a single trail through the mud. And that's the only place there that we walked. The only place. And that's the way that the entire cave has been treated. Most of the cave has never been touched by a human being. Never.
The formations, the rocks, still the crystal growing on the rocks, the formations growing from the floor or on the walls are pristine. They glisten. And for us, it's just a very dramatic experience and something that you can't find in most caves.
Right, so there's a soda straw growing off the drapery.
It's a beautiful cave, very colorful. The formations are everywhere. I like to think of it as a wonderfully designed museum with these individual sculptures and paintings everywhere you look.
Some of nature's artwork found in Kartchner Caverns are soda straws. One measures nearly 22 feet, the longest in the United States, second longest in the world. Fried eggs. And cave bacon. Flowstone. Totems of all sizes and colors. And an amazing stone column nearly 60 feet tall, named Kubla Khan by the discoverers.
Kartchner is a dynamic cave. Not only is it a living cave because the water is dripping and formations are still growing, but there's dramatic things that happen periodically. So certain times during wet seasons, there's literally rivers flowing through the cave.
I come out here now, what was it, almost 30 years ago, we found it. The whole thing is absolutely amazing. A discovery like this is a caver's dream. We consider ourselves extremely fortunate to have made a discovery of this magnitude. It's a remarkable cave, and now, of course, the way it's being cared for by the state, it will remain a remarkable cave for our grandchildren and their grandchildren.
Lonely howl echoes across the forest, bringing to mind a time long ago when silent shadows moved beneath branches and frolicked amidst fallen leaves. The lonely howl is music to the ears of biologists and conservationists everywhere, a tribute to those who fought for years to bring this native back to Arizona. It was a dream come true in the early spring of 1998, in the remote Blue Ridge primitive area of eastern Arizona.
On March 29th, 11 wolves were released from the 3 different pens, but before those wolves were released, the number of wolves had to be selected from the captive stock. The wolves, first of all, had to be genetically surplus, and they also had to have characteristics that showed they would do well in the wild. They were selected from over 30 different captive breeding facilities, including Sevietta National Wildlife Refuge. And once they were selected, they were captured. Interagency team went in and captured, anesthetized, and processed all the wolves that came from Sevietta. Blood samples were taken, fecal samples were taken looking for parasites, vaccinations were given, measurements were taken. Little electronic transponders called pit tags were implanted within the animals. They were given ear tags, and they were also radio collared. So we have a very good physical workup of each of these individual wolves, and we'll be able to identify them through a number of different methods should they die in the wild, and we can recover their bodies. All although these wolves have been in captivity for a number of generations, I personally believe that the instincts that have been developed over millions of years are finally going to have a chance to express themselves, and these wolves are going to do just fine.
The historic range of the Mexican wolf included Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Texas, and of course Mexico down through the Sonora Desert area. This blue range we're seeing here is pretty typical of the sort of habitats they lived in. Tended to be up in the mountains with some timber, although they did extend, of course, down through the desert a bit. We think that this was probably the northern edge of the historic range up here in the blue. The Mexican wolves here are about 20% smaller than the northern Rocky wolves that occur in Glacier and Yellowstone National Parks. And another difference is the Mexican wolves here are all basically a gray color with some variation. You don't have melanistic or black phase here, and you don't have very many white ones here. They're kind of coyote colored. And because they're coyote colored, there might be some opportunity to confuse them with coyotes. Weights on the wolves, the average adult female Mexican wolf probably goes about 60 pounds, maybe 65, and your average adult male would probably go 75 pounds or 80. We had a couple that when we released them, they weighed 85 pounds, but that was on the large side after having been in captivity. A wolf pack consists of a family group that's made up of the alpha male and female, which are the dominant or breeding animals, and their offspring of the year from the previous litter, and perhaps a hanger-on or two from previous litters before that. It's basically a family unit. The way wolves kind of control their population in the wild is that the only one female in the pack will breed, and that's generally the alpha female. Occasionally another female will breed, but not very often. They tend to give birth along about May 1st, and that varies a little bit from climate to climate. But about May 1st, and the litter size recorded in the literature will be about 5 to 6 for the Mexican wolves. There's been some concerns with these wolves because they have been captive raised as to how they would adapt to being in the wild. Would they be people-friendly, conditioned, or timid? We're finding kind of a mix, and when we do run into the wolves, if they don't run away and they stand and look at you, we've been doing some aversive conditioning. Running out, yelling, honking the horn, throwing stones if they're close enough, and even shooting some cracker shells, just to give them the idea that people are not friendly and we shouldn't hang around looking at you. Many people have asked if they're going to have an opportunity to see some of these Mexican wolves out here, and I would certainly hope so. However, we don't want them to be too friendly, so if you were to see the wolves out there, please don't encourage them in any way. Don't hand them food. Don't call them. If possible, scare them, honk the horn. Most of the time when we see them, they turn tail and leave. The supplemental feeding we've been doing since the release involves hauling road-killed wild ungulates like deer and elk to places where the wolves will be. We do this in an attempt to try and keep the wolves hungry enough that they're going to go out and hunt on their own, but to maintain them enough that they'll survive.
The goal of the Mexican Wolf Recovery Program is to establish a self-sufficient population of 100 wolves in the Blue Range area. The challenges facing the wolves, however, are many. Not only must they fight for survival in the wild, but in the courts and local communities as well. Conflict and controversy continues over livestock predation and potential wolf-human interaction. But wildlife managers remain optimistic about the future of the program.
I think we can really judge this project as having been successful when some wild-born wolves have reproduced wild-born offspring. They're living in the wild without any human assistance. They're rarely seen, and they become part of the background scene here. The local people accept them, and they just fade and become a part of the ecosystem.
You know, one of the things that I love best about Arizona is the adventure. The adventure of discovery, of leaving the city behind, of coming out here where the air is clean, and you've got extinct volcanoes in the background and cattle grazing. There's nothing like this. If you're looking for adventure, this is the place to come. This is the high country, near Springerville and Greer in northeastern Arizona. It's a land of high, fertile plains formed over eons in the ashes of one of the largest extinct volcano fields in the country. The land rises into the forested slopes of the White Mountains, where summers are green, lush, and cool. Quiet places and summer breezes soothe the soul and lull the mind. But my favorite time is when the summer green turns to autumn gold. Those marvelous, crisp, chilly days and deep blue skies come into this part of the world. I've come here to one of those wonderful surprises that's the reward of those who take the time to get off the main roads and explore around a bit. We're heading for a ranch down in this canyon, actually, just a few miles from the little White Mountain resort town of Greer. This ranch has it all: Indian ruins, fly fishing, cattle drives, a history full of bad guys, good guys, and one remarkable woman. Hi, Wink. I'm Michael Dixon.
Nice to know you, Michael.
Thank you.
Welcome to the X-Diamond.
It's beautiful. Show me around.
Well, come on in.
Wink Kriegler owns the X-Diamond Ranch, whose headquarters are here, along the upper reaches of the Little Colorado River. It's a working ranch that's been in her family for 100 years, but pressure from environmental laws and government regulations has drastically cut her cattle operations. So, Wink has turned to other ways to make the land work for her.
I found it necessary, in view of trying to maintain the integrity of the land, to incorporate other forms of business or commerce on the land. And to do that, first of all, we've developed the fishery here. Now we have horseback riding. We have some very fine lodging that does not disturb the aesthetics of the canyon.
And that's why I'm here, doing a little bit of lodging and fishing and horseback riding. You know, city dwellers don't see this much in the press, but many ranchers are very involved in conservation efforts. They have to be, to have stayed on the land for as long as Wink's family has. Wink manages her ranch not only for her cattle, but for wildlife too.
Everything on the land is renewable, and I think that it was all made to be used wisely. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of those natural resources and a lot of the work that Mother Nature did. You know, everything we have in this world, in one way or another, comes from the earth.
Fall is roundup time.
Okay, Michael, let's just walk along here and we'll gather this back end and kind of kick them on down towards those cows that you can see on down.
You know, a lot of history hangs in the air here. Wasn't too far back, this country was as remote as you could get, and it attracted a lot of the West's ne'er-do-wells. They say Billy the Kid passed through, and remember Ike Clanton? He escaped getting killed by Wyatt Earp at the OK Corral, but then showed up in these parts.
Referred to himself as a stock dealer here until June 1st, 1886, when he was shot and killed down on Eagle Creek, suspect rustling.
Of course, the citizens complained to the sheriff. He was out in Prescott because this whole area at the time was in Yavapai County. And the sheriff wrote back,
"It's too far, and I don't know the way."
But then they hired a guy by the name of Commodore Perry Owens. Don't let that sissy name fool you. You either submitted or you got shot.
Commodore Owens became known as the Law of the West. And when outlaws defied him, they went to their rest.
That's right.
He carried a 44 on each side. When he went after outlaws, they surrendered or died.
It's not as rough and tumble and violent now, but this is cattle country still. Even the cowboys have long family history. This is Sam Udall. Yep, he's related to Stewart and Moen. When you come to take a horseback ride on the ranch, he'll probably ride along.
The key is patience. Let that line come all the way back.
This next part is for the fishermen. Wink Kriegler's conservation efforts have turned this part of the Little Colorado River into a fly fisherman's paradise. Before you hit the stream, you learn the basics on this pond. early morning harmony of sparkle and motion. Not long, and you're out on the stream.
We have fish all the way up to probably 6 or 7 pounds in this stretch of stream. 6 or 7. Yes.
Basically, you literally sneak up on the fish and fool them.
I think so, and it's more proactive. You're out attacking. You're not sitting on your fanny on a lawn chair waiting for your bobber to go under. And that was about a 12 or a 13-inch rainbow. And trout do not live in ugly places.
This was fun. The tour through Wink's museum, and Wink, of course, is a fun tour guide. The museum started as a place to display trophies from the days when Wink was showing horses, but it quickly grew.
I started with the idea of just building this small little building that we're sitting on as a place to set aside some of the horse show and rodeo memorabilia from the more than 20 years that we traveled across the country showing horses for Ben Johnson, John Wayne, and lots of other folks. Once I became involved in searching out the history of my own family, I found out that my family was very involved with all of the rest of the families that settled here. And at the same time that I was getting involved in searching out their family histories, other people who have roots and ties to this Northeastern Arizona territory became interested in sharing their family collections.
Now, let's see, nice easy. Back in those days, I might have made a living playing this old organ. Well, maybe not. I'll probably do better digging in the ground with Jeff Brown at his prehistoric Indian ruin.
This would have been built by the Mogollon people. They probably started to build this pueblo at about 1000, 1050, and they probably left this area just by looking at the pottery pieces. I believe they left this area at about 1400.
Guests at the X-Diamond Ranch can dig in this site under Jeff's supervision and learn about as much about preserving sites like this as they want. Jeff is pretty excited about this ruin, from its square kiva to the intricate masonry in the entry to the kiva. He's hoping this dig will reveal artifacts to advance our understanding of a people that flourished here for a while and then disappeared. So, this is what I like most about Arizona, the adventure in places like Wink Kriegler's X-Diamond Ranch. It's given me a whole new perspective about how we can all use the land, not use it up.
People that come here do understand the balance, and I'm very thankful that as people come in, we have an opportunity, just as we are here today, to show them what's going on so that they can really understand why you do what you do on a piece of land. And I found people to be very inquiring and very open-minded and, quite frankly, very understanding of what's going on once they see all of this firsthand. Every time I step out on this bluff, I'm just reminded of how magnificent this canyon is and how thankful I am to have spent all my life right here on this property.
Wild Arizona is made possible by the KAET program partners, friends of Channel 8 who provide additional gifts for programs about the Arizona experience.